Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's mid-April 2021 and just like many of you in the United States having to deal with taxes and all that, getting all the paperwork together, I find that so boring you can't even believe it. So I worked a bit on that today and I thought, you know what, I need some R&R. So I thought I'd come out, work on the old Mercedes just to get over that misery. So what I thought today, I was going to start prepping this area for reinforcing that reinforcement plate for the steering box. Common issue, well, it's not about common issue, it's an issue that came up on the 108, 109 I think in particular because of the weight of the motor, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. From my understanding, once the big 6.3 was in this frame, it put extra stress on the steering box, and when the technology of the tyres improved, then that transferred even more stress to the unibody frame and resulted in some cracking in these areas near the steering box. And obviously that would ruin your day if something happened with the steering, wouldn't it? So let me get in close and I'll show you what I've been doing to prep it for the welding plate. And I've been recommended for 12 gauge steel to weld onto the frame there as a reinforcement, and I'll show you a little extra I'm going to do as well. And I believe it's Duke, I think you used to do this in the trade as a repair. So I think I saw a picture that you posted on the group, and I'm kind of using that as a guide. So let me get in closer with you and I'll show you what we've been doing. Obviously we've got the steering box out. I did this off camera, but the bolts on this one obviously go through here, right? But before I cut these, there was a kind of a mound of weld here, and it's the same on my other 108. It's almost like they mounded up a bunch of weld and the bolts sat about there. And so obviously I had to come in with the cutting wheel, cut those off, and now I'm just grinding these welds essentially flat to the framework to enable me to lay my plate flat on here. You see, I've got my paper template here. Just made a paper template. I'm going to get that flat on there. I'll tape it into position, punch through to get my hole positioning. Okay. Here's the metal plate I made up from said template. Okay. Now once that's on there, it's going to need a little bending to make sure it lays flat in there. And where these holes punch through, I was thinking I would add a large washer as well to sort of spread the load even more so. So probably a nice thick washer in the three places. I think it would look neat as well, you know. And obviously the challenge with a weld like this, this is 12 gauge steel. This is 16 gauge from my understanding, or well, it is. Now obviously if I turn the power up enough to heat this up, it's going to blow through this. So I've been practicing, I'll re-practice again before. The weld has to be, you have to concentrate on the top edge of the thicker material and allow the weld to kind of roll down to this material. It might be a little tricky in this position. If I'm in any doubt, I may just tack weld this in and then leave it to when I've got the car on its side to enable me to do it a little easier. But I should be able to do it in this position. So first things first, I started to flatten this one off. You can see, I'll zoom in on that. Yeah, you can see that one's a lot flatter now. I want to grind that just so it kisses the metal. Don't want to take away from the strength of this. Grind all those flat, and then we'll go on to the next stage of getting that hole positioning correct, and then forming the metal to the slight curve of this frame here. I'll leave it just a little proud there, because obviously the main strength is in that weld and the top washers, so I don't want to bite into this frame, you see. I want to preserve as much of that as possible. Let's do this guy. I'm going to try and flow this bottom edge in, you know, so it looks smooth there. Obviously when you're doing stuff like this, make sure you've got a fire extinguisher around, even though everything's drained out of this car, you never know, so I've always got a fire extinguisher next to me. Okay, they're all ground flat now. I left them just a smidge proud because I just really don't want to touch the mainframe. So my compressor's out of action at the moment, my big compressor. I'm waiting for a part in the mail. So I want to clean this area up, really clean, and see where it's got some pitting here. I'm going to treat this area. Let me show you. Now obviously we're going to have metal to metal here. So all of this area in here, I'm going to treat with a rust encapsulator, okay? And obviously we've still got to clean around the perimeter where we're welding, and I'll use a weld through primer. But these areas that are more hidden under here, I'm going to put some platinum rust proof primer under here, and I'll probably put it on here as well. Weld through primer around the edges, weld that sucker on there, right? Get that welded on. And I was half thinking what I could do is maybe even leave a little gap at the top, right? And then I can inject some also some frame coating on the inside here, but I may not have to do that. Yeah, so I may or may not do that, but I do want to get some zinc weld through primer on this. And then obviously once this is welded on, this will all get seam sealed and coated and everything thoroughly. So right, let's get, what I'm going to use is that Eastwood thing, you know, the SCT with a wire brush attachment. It's a bit cumbersome in this area, but like I say, my compressor's out of action at the moment, so this will have to do it, won't it? Before we coat it, let's get some reference holes on our template. Let's tape that on there to the curve there, something like that. Alright, I've got a drill here, that should just poke through. There's one up there. That one. Right, we've got our holes now, see. Transfer those to the metal, and I've got to clean this area down here as well, and then we'll encapsulate it. Okay, so first off we'll get that area clean. The old gloves on here. I've got a wax and grease remover from a good quality paint store that I use to get all my finishing materials. Probably acetone or xylene or something will be just as good. I'm just gonna do that. Right. That can be drying while we stir the rust encapsulator. This is the one I used on the subframe. You know, got to make sure the edge is really clean when you put it away, otherwise you'll never get the lid off. So give that a good old stir. You just use a cheapo brush. Okay, let's see how this brush is on here. And obviously we can't do any welding tonight, so we've got to let this dry. And I'll get it on the patch as well. Main thing is I want to get it into all those pits, you know, and to give it some protection, because we are doing metal to metal contact, which obviously, you know, don't like in the repairs, you know, that we've seen, but this is essential. There's not much way out of it really, so if we treat the metal we should be good. Get a lot in this little seam here, punch it in there. I was thinking in certain areas when we take it back to metal on the wheel arches, especially splash areas, is when they're back to metal, treating the certain areas, you know, where you're getting a lot of water with this, and then key sanding this up with the Scotch-Brite and then epoxy primer over this, because this takes care of the, you know, the pitted areas that I'm not sure epoxy does. You know, let me know if anyone knows out there. I'm just trying to roll some of that into the crevice there, and we'll be taking a lot of this off around the edge anyway, because we've got to make a good weld, but this is mainly for this area. So we'll let that dry up. Next day now, this is all obviously dried up, and I did it off camera, but I essentially used that paper template, taped it to my metal plate here, drilled some holes, made them just a little bigger to enable some positioning, and so I'm going to get the original bolts here and see if this bolts into position. Get one started here. Right there. That's that one. There you go. So now obviously this isn't flattened down, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just bolt some bolts on the back here and see if we can pull that plate down a little. It probably won't pull it all the way obviously, but get it started, give us a kind of a story, so to speak, you know. So let me get socket on there, get that one on there. Just went to the hardware store. Also I bought some grade 8 washers here that are going to be welded on there as well. Yeah, that worked pretty good actually. It's that sucked down there. That pulls that nice and flat, you see. It's got a little lip here. I can actually I can probably just clamp that in position, weld that. What I think I'll do, I'll mark where I have to clean up. That, again, that one I might be able to clamp that. That's gone in pretty well, that. I'm marking it because it tells me where to clean up and not take too much of that rust encapsulator off the underside, you know. So that's obviously just all on the edge there. There we go. So we'll just clean this metal up all around here and leave all this nice, you see. Let's do that. Okay, so I've cleaned those surfaces up around the perimeter and clean this guy up around the perimeter. I'm going to get some weld through primer on here and on the back of this. And then what I might do is just tack weld those washers on there. I might actually weld the washers on while it's off, it'll probably be easier. So that's the next step. Alright, we'll let that dry for a bit. Get the heat lamp on it, I think. Right, so I've cleaned up these washers, took the zinc plating off of them, on the one side anyway, and then I'll just use the bolt in the vise to locate them. and they'll set like that, you see. So hopefully I can get a nice weld on that. We'll see, won't we? The last one's the best one, obviously. I mean, that one's not really good, but that one's not bad. Okay, so I've cleaned them up a bit. Look a little better, cleaned up, but so there you go. There's the reinforcement. So this one's a little sloppy, but I'll probably put some sealer or something around it, you know, but make it look nicer. But there you go. So we got what was it? We got 12 gauge steel, and then we got 1/4 inch plate of washers there, 1/4 inch washers, and then they've got something guaranteed spread there, so you don't have to worry about losing washers now, do you? Okay, so let's get that bolted in position and see how it looks, shall we? Just sprayed the back of this with zinc primer, so let's bolt that guy on now, make sure that's positioned. This is all zinc primer, of course. This helps strengthen this corner as well, because I mean that hole's pretty close to the corner there. So that extra 1/4 inch of steel welded in with that washer, it's added up to quite a bit of metal there now. Nice and tight. Actually, I want to practice on my welding skills for this kind of weld. So, and also make sure, you know, when you're coming in with the gun here, that you've got a clean run all the way, like this, like that, and then, you know, that one should be pretty good. I'm half wondering whether to leave that open at the bottom, maybe for drainage. We'll have a think about that. Okay, this is one I practiced some time ago. Okay, so this metal on the top here is 12 gauge welded onto 16 gauge. And I messed up here. I was playing with a plasma cutter here, so ignore that. But you can see I started off here messing around here, getting my speed right, and then started to play with the wire feed and temperatures and stuff, and concentrating on the top edge of the 12 gauge and allowing the weld to kind of roll into the other metal. So you can see it started to get a lot neater here. See if we can zoom in. If I could get it looking like that, I'd be quite happy. But again, this is on the bench, you see, and it's a lot easier to do than right on the car there. But we can clean things up. I would like to aim for this. And you can see it's got decent penetration through here. Coming through, you can see the heat there, come through. Ignore those holes, that's plasma cutter. So it seems to be working quite nicely. So I'm going to practice that, and then we'll get on with this one. I've set up a couple of pieces of metal. This is the 12 gauge, this is 16 gauge. I've cleaned all the surfaces, and I'm mounting it in the vise this way because it's all very well doing it on the bench, but this is the angle I'm going to be working on, so I'm kind of trying to simulate what I'm going to be up against. Okay, and from previous attempts I made notes that for our power and our wire speed, and I've made a note to slow down a little bit. I was going a little fast, so to allow the weld to penetrate, I'm going to slow it up. So I'm going to try this edge first of all, and I'll see if I can get a good shot for you guys. So we're all set up here. This is our first run. I'm trying to simulate the car body, obviously. I'm going to be on the vertical here. Let's see how we get on. Alright, let's show you on the camera here. Okay, hopefully you can see that. It doesn't look too bad. I stalled out a little bit here because, like I say, I'm a bit blinded from the mask not reacting from the first strike. So I was having real trouble making sure I could see the line. I think I also put a bit more light on the area. That's always an issue I find. Anyway, so that doesn't look too bad. It's not blown through the 16 gauge, and it's got decent penetration. Very close to blowing through there, but I think that's got good penetration. So let's just try again at the same settings, and we'll put it in the vise to simulate again the vertical, and we'll see how we get on. Maybe we'll do it this way, you know, we'll try and do this one as I'm coming in at this angle, because that's part of the job over there. So let's have a look. Let's mount that in there. And then maybe we'll try and set it up and do a bottom edge, you know, welding underneath. Let's just have a go, shall we? And I'm going to bring more light in as well. Right, we're going to keep it on the same settings. Let's ground it out here. I put more light in the back here. Hopefully my eyes are recovered. That's what you get for buying cheapy, crappy helmets, isn't it? So, like I say, I got a new one on the way, a much better one. So let's. Okay, so I'm going to simulate that we're having trouble getting around here, and I'm going to try and come in here. Concentrate on that top edge. Should have put my better gloves on. And my welding jacket. I'm striking out here, don't I? Actually, that doesn't look bad. I've got a little wobbly here. I'm trying to get my hand position, you know, like I might clamp something, you know, for me to rest on as I'm passing through. But let me get you off the stand here and I'll show you. It doesn't look bad. Right, so hopefully you can see that. That's the one we just did. Still cooling down. It doesn't look bad actually, does it? Went a little wonky here. I've got reasonable speed. I think we're going to have good penetration at the back. I'll check that. So we're getting there. I think this setting is really good actually, and my speed is good. I might have to slow a little bit. Let's do another test on the other line. We've mounted in the vise so it's kind of upside down here, simulating that bottom edge on the car. Let me get you in a little closer. There you go. So yeah, and I've clamped a board to my bench to give me something to support, you know, as I'm guiding through. So I've got my welding jacket on this time, and let's see how we do. It's definitely a little trickier. It's bubbled a bit there because I think a little bit of water came out and I cooled it off, but it don't look bad actually. I think I need to come in more at this angle. I'm a little bit high, so I'll grind up a couple of pieces of metal and do this again on another piece of metal, because I think I was too much like that. I need to be more like this, you see. So that's what it's all about, though, isn't it? Right, I don't have a lot of 12 gauge metal left, so I got this little scrappy bit here. Clean the metal up again. That's a bit better. Go down here. Oh, that's probably my best so far. A good pace. Right, there you go. That bottom one is the one that I'm simulating, kind of welding upside down. And that one, that doesn't look bad, that one. Little squirrely at the end there, right at the bottom there, but generally that's looks pretty neat actually. So if we could come close to that all the way round, that'd be all right. That, and you know, any deviation I can always clean up, and you know, it's going to have a seam sealer, I think, round, make sure no moisture gets in behind. So let me get my gloves on, and we'll see what the back looks like for penetration. Okay, so this is the one, yeah, right one. This is the underside one. You see, I got very close to burning through right there. I think I might have stalled out a little bit. So I think the key to this is to get good hand support, you know, my guide hand, so maybe rig up clamp some kind of framework on there so I've got a good support. But I think we got it dialed in. We are at 250 wire speed, 18.5 on the power setting, and that's taking into consideration the 12 gauge. If you put that, let me show you what would happen if we just hit the 16 gauge with this same power. Okay, right, I'm just going to weld just like I was, and I'll show you why we've got to make sure, I say, well, just as we were before, but straight on the 16 gauge. We'll try and run a bead. You watch what happens. There you go. I got further than I thought actually. I'll bring you in. So you can see I was trying to move along just as I was, and then finally it just couldn't take the heat. So that's 16 gauge on the same power setting as what we've done welding on the 12 gauge to the 16 gauge. So if we're not careful, that's what's going to happen to the cast frame if I am not careful. So you can see why I'm practicing, can't you? Right, just to recap on this is the first one we did. This was the upside down one. I didn't like the way it was not really biting in on this bottom edge here. So because I think I was orientated like this and I needed to orientate more like that. So then off camera, let me get the other one. I got a piece of metal and did it, same thing again, but shows you, look how bad that is. And you know why? Because the metal's not clean. I did one where the metal's not clean, all the same settings. Look how crappy that looks, just splodging all over the place because it was contaminated. So you must make sure the metal's clean. And then on the third one, this was our first pass, which wasn't bad. That's pretty respectable, and it's getting better penetration. I could still, I think, come with an angle like this. I still think I was up a bit, but anyway, concentrate on that top edge of the 12 gauge, and then that's our final one, which came out really nice actually, and that's the one on the same settings through just 16 gauge. So there you go. So I think we're getting it, and I think next steps we can weld that plate on there. So it's the next day. I had to do some other things today, so I got an opportunity to come back and finally weld this in. So what I did, just off camera actually, I just took a little bit more off of this edge and this front edge to bring it a little bit in there, so we can, because it was overhanging the frame a little bit. Cleaned it up again, made sure it was dead clean, bolted it on, and then I came round with a wire wheel attachment to clean the edge, so we know that we've got good coverage between the two plates. But right at that edge where we're going to make the weld, I ran the wire wheel round there, and so I've got a little stool off to the side here off camera to give me something to support when I'm running my bead. Might as well get started. Well, there it is, all welded on, and I tried to tidy up some of these edges. A little raggedy here, but it's all solid as a rock now, and it's It looks pretty good actually. I'm quite happy with it. I say, I think this was surprisingly the hardest area to get to. I was having trouble there for some reason. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. So everything lines up nice. We have now got reinforced steering box. Bolts go through with 1/4 inch washers welded on, and give it a coat of rust encapsulator, and then I'll run a seam seal round here. And like I say, I've left this open here. I think it's a good idea just to allow any moisture that may gather in here just to drip straight out. Okay, so that's it for today. Sorry, it kind of ran on a long video. I wanted to cover a lot of details. A little trickier to weld in than I was expecting, especially on that back edge there. But I got a good penetration, so that's the main thing, a good strong weld. And so we'll treat it with seam sealer anyway, because we don't want any moisture getting in behind those two plates. So thanks for watching, guys, appreciate it, and please hit like and subscribe and share if you like what you see, and I'll see you in the next video. Alright, take care, bye bye.